Okay, well, good afternoon, you guys. Thank you so much for coming today. Ari Harkov from the Harkov Lewis team and Lisa Lippman, both number one in 2021, but also for many years before that have been number one. And, you know, we look up to you guys. You guys are fantastic at what you do. And we're looking to learn a little bit about your success. So I'm going to start with you, Lisa. Lisa, tell me a little bit about how you got to where you are today.
Sure. I think that the biggest thing I'll say is that I've been working really, really hard for almost 25 years. That's my secret. Be a workaholic.
Well, what does that mean, working hard?
Yeah, so, well, you know, working hard so that it works is really working smart, right? So, you know, first of all, I think that you have to take an attitude in almost any business that you're going to get up early in the morning and you're going to start your work and you're going to, you know, work all day, and you're not going to have rules about, you know, not starting before 11 o'clock in the morning or different things. I see a lot of brokers who have kind of rules about those things. You know, things have changed too, I will say, in the 25 years I've been doing it, because when we started, we didn't have cell phones. I was the first person when I started. Maybe when you started, you probably did have a cell phone, but when I started at Corcoran, there were no cell phones, or almost none in the very beginning, and I was the first person at Corcoran to get a BlackBerry. And, you know, that was game-changing, the concept of a BlackBerry and email. And I remember the days when certain brokers would say, well, I'm not on email. So, you know, for better or for worse, it's great because, you know, you can be connected any place you can go, and you can go on vacation and be working. The negative, of course, is that, you know, if you're not careful, you can work all the time. So I will not hold myself out as an example of somebody who has very good limitations. I really don't. I really do work all the time.
I know that about you.
That has worked for me, though. I would rather kind of be working all the time than have 300 emails to catch up on. So you have to pick your style. So I would say to people, work hard, pick your style, pick the way you want to work hard. But I think something that's really important and is sometimes not recognized by people going into the business is people see the commissions that brokers make and they say, oh, wow, I just have to sell, you know, 4 big apartments a year and I'll make a lot of money. And, you know, the only way you get to sell 4 big properties a year is by working really hard and staying with connections, keeping up with connections, and making sure you're constantly meeting new people, and also knowing the market. So it's not an easy job. There are no easy jobs out there, and there are certainly no lucrative jobs where you don't work hard. So that's what I'm going to say my secret is.
Yeah, I mean, and Ari, you work with Warner Lewis, who is fabulous as well, and you guys have this team that's very tight-knit. You guys seem to have a really nice culture. But you're a relatively young guy. You have your MBA, you have 3 kids, you run, you do all this stuff. What is the secret to your success and managing also such a big team?
It's a good question. I think, you know, to Lisa's point, I don't know that there are secrets. I think that the thing about our business is it's not rocket science. We're not curing cancer. We're not, you know, coming up with how are we going to put people on the moon. But you have to have these different brains almost. You have to have the brain to be able to deal with people and to understand psychology, and they're saying this, but they mean this, or they communicated in this way, so that means this, or I can kind of feel out that this person, if I deliver this news in this way, it's going to be, you know, better received. So you have to have this kind of psychologist brain set almost. You have to have a quantitative brain. You have to be able to look at comps and numbers and budgets and figure out, you know, pricing and negotiations and structure and maintenance and financials and the rest of it. Then you have to have this sort of operational brain, whether you're running, you know, a single person or a smaller team, or whether you're running a bigger team, you're operating a business in a sense. You have to have this operational kind of logistics brain. And then you also have to have a marketing and aesthetic brain to be able to look at photos and floor plans and social media posts and newsletters and staging and understand what's going to appeal to a consumer in what way, and how is a buyer going to respond to this space, and should they renovate the kitchen or should they not? You know, when we get to a developer level, should we put in marble? Should we put in granite? Should this be a 2-bedroom with a big dining room, or should it be a 3-bedroom? You know, all this kind of analysis. So you have all these kind of different brains that you have to function in. And the cool thing about our business, which I think you probably agree with is a fun challenge, is you're in all of those brains constantly back and forth, kind of like a clown. It's you're keeping all these balls in the air. And so we don't have the benefit of like kind of a single focus. Like I'm not a marketing person, I'm not a quantitative person, but I have to kind of be all of those people. And I think that the brokers who are successful in our business have figured out a way to kind of like live in those different brains and juggle at all times, while of course working really hard, treating people the right way, thinking long term, and getting to a point where you can kind of work on your business, not just in your business. And that's very difficult to do.
Yeah, I actually think what Ari said is pretty beautiful. I've never come up with that. I always say that one of the things that I'm good at is multitasking, and I sort of, owe that to the fact that I'm a mom of 3, and moms always have to figure out how to be in multitasking. And here you are as a dad of 3. But I think that what you said is really true. It's this multitasking, which is also, like you said, it's what makes our job really fun. It's never boring.
No, it's never dull, and you're both on. I mean, you can't really, you can take a break here and there, but it's constant. You're always needed. So let's talk for a second about buyers and sellers, because it's what we do. You work with buyers and you work with sellers. And I've been with Lisa when she's managing a bunch of deals. I've been, listening in, and she's making calls and she's working out a deal. And so let's talk about sellers. When you're getting listings, is there some tip or some advice that you could give to agents who are maybe newer in the business, who are working with sellers? How do you go about that? I know every pitch is different depending on the property, but how do you put your best foot forward to get a listing, to instill trust with a seller, to make sure that they want to work with you? What are some of the tips that you can share with agents who are up and coming, or even seasoned agents?
So I would give, the same advice, but the advice I'm going to give is sort of advice that if you're a new agent, it's going to be harder, and if you're an older agent, should be more obvious. So for a new agent, I think that you have to maybe sort of own the fact that you're a newer agent, because that may come up in a pitch, because obviously I was a new agent at some point in time. And I think, the pitch that you want to make is that you're going to work harder, that you're going to give all your attention to this listing, that you have the attention to give it, you're going to work smarter, you're going to do all the research that you need to do, and you're going to make that seller your prime focus. So I think that's a good way of doing it, and I want a lot of business like that in the beginning.
But couldn't you also, I suggest to agents to also sometimes work with a more seasoned agent to make sure that you get the listing, right?
Definitely. I have done that. I haven't done it in a long time, obviously, but I definitely brought in people in the past. And then what I always tell people, and I think sometimes people don't do when they go to pitches, is you have to be really educated, not just about the apartment that you're pitching, or the property, I should say, but about everything that has sold in the neighborhood, and the history of, if it's one building, that building, if it's a house, that street. That's really impressive, because, while we're all sort of hopefully able to do certain things, get the floor plan done, take some photos, market it, this and that. What's really impressive, I always find, to a seller is that you've done a lot of homework before. No matter what you do in any job, if you've done homework, that impresses people. And so knowing a lot of the history about the property just will give you a leg up, because guaranteed the person you're pitching up against is not going to have done that as much work on that.
Ari, what say you?
I think that's all spot on. I think the other thing to add, and I've seen this with agents who are really successful in our business over the years, is you have to remember that whatever property it is that you're potentially representing, that's the most important thing going on in that person or family's life at that moment. 400,000, 4 million, 40 million, townhouse, condo, co-op, doesn't matter. It's the most important thing happening in their life at that moment. And if you respond to them as such and you treat them as such, they get that. And if you're sort of like, if you look at them as a number or as a transaction, or they feel that kind of transactional sense from you, or you're kind of like, I've been doing this a long time, I'm jaded, like whatever, it's just another sale, they feel that energy and you won't get the business. And I think that some of the really successful agents in our business, Lisa included, like they never lose that kind of like inner drive and excitement about the business. And every opportunity to interact with a new customer is day zero for them. Like it may be your 400th pitch of your life, but it's their first, And it's like, if you go to watch a show on Broadway, they do 8 shows a week, but you only see it once, and it has to feel fresh. So everything you said is totally spot on. I would just layer on that like feeling of like, I get that this is really important to you, and I will treat it as such, and they will respond to that.
I love that. It's like
That's
you're
great
in
advice.
yeah, because you're in emotional alignment with them, and they feel that you're there for them. You're not just like, okay, moving
Yeah, not
on.
checking a box and just moving on.
If they
Yeah.
feel that way, they're gonna,
somebody else.
you're gonna. So I think that's great advice. Let's talk a little bit more difficult one. Buyers, because you know the saying, they say buyers are liars, sellers are yellers, and lawyers are destroyers. That's like the saying. But let's talk about buyers. How do you work with buyers? How do you create that sort of loyalty so that they want to work with you? So they say, okay, Lisa, I got to buy this, and can you work with me and not like just talk to 10 different agents? What do you do in that situation, Ari?
So I think the business has changed since I've been in the business, and it's changed since you've been in the business, and it's constantly evolving. But the reality is where we are right now is, as agents, we have to acknowledge the fact that, yes, we bring listings to buyers, but like really we don't. Like my 10-year-old nephew could find them listings on StreetEasy. You don't really need us for that. And so we're very direct when we work with buyers to kind of say initially, like, this is the value add. This is where we add value. When you have a property that's of interest, we can help you understand the comps, the market analysis, the building financials, how to negotiate an offer, how to navigate a bidding war. The consultative kind of advisory aspect to our business is the value add proposition. It's not like, are you going to send me the listing first, or am I going to find it on StreetEasy? Like, that's gone. Those days existed, but they're gone. And sure, every now and again, maybe I find something off market because I have a connection with a good broker and we know something, and I know you're looking at this building on the Upper West Side or what have you, but that's a 1 in 100. That's not common. So I think if you're direct and you explain to the buyer, this is what I'm going to do and this is how I'm going to add value, right there you've already won 80-90% of their trust. If you don't explain that and you aren't clear, then you get those buyers are sort of like, they're walking into your open house and they're saying like, do I have to work with that person at Corcoran because I found this on my own, and you're like, that's not relevant to working with them, but no one ever explained that to them. Right. And so I think, to go back to your point, Lisa, what you were saying about like being prepared, it's the same thing with buyers. It's being prepared. It's explaining this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to add value, and if you're interested, in a 3-bedroom in the Upper West Side between X and Y, here's what's happening in the market, here are the comps, these are the buildings to look at. It's being a professional as opposed to kind of like, I'll set you up for the search on Real Scout and then call me. Yeah.
That's true. Lisa, what about you? What would you say?
I think what Ari said is 100% true. What I would just add is sort of how you explain how you're adding value. Is, one of the beauties of real estate is, it's not like a spreadsheet. If you're comparing, stocks, there's some differences with them too. But I try to, the great thing about real estate is it's all so unique. Every property is unique. And StreetEasy is great, or whatever website you're using is great, but they're not giving you the nuances. They're not showing you the things that a seasoned broker can. One of the things I always point out is that properties are very different based on their fenestration, right? Like windows are hugely important. Why is one building more valuable than another building, whether it's an apartment or a house? It has a lot to do with windows, ceiling heights, all of these things. So when direct buyers come, because we all get them a lot now, and they say, oh, well, this building next door comped at this, or this apartment comped at this. One of the things that you can explain is how the buildings are different, how the properties are different, how the floor levels are different, because there's a floor that's blocking up to a certain level and not after a certain level, and all of those things. So there's a lot of knowledge that a seasoned broker can really bring to the process. And then the other thing that you often can help with in the process is winning on a bidding war. And I don't know about you, but what I've found a lot is my sub $10 million properties that go to bidding wars, half of the buyers these days are young, direct people who tell me that, they're not coming with a broker, they hope that that's gonna help. And I can tell you that 9 times out of 10, it's not helping them, because their bids are not as competitive, they're doing their math wrong on how it should be making it up, and they're just forgetting certain things that are appealing in an offer. Writing a letter explaining who you are, explaining exactly when you can close, having a lawyer ready, like so many things that there are nuances to that a seasoned broker can bring to the table.
And that's what you help with. I think, as we say, it's a relationship business. I remember once, Lisa, you saying, someone was showing you some technology and all the things that they could do, and you should get this. You said, do you know why people hire me? It's because of this. It's because of what I can tell them. It's about my experience. It's my wisdom that I impart, and they trust me. And technology helps you to get information to people quicker and that sort of thing. But what you give or what you share is special. It's unique to Ari, it's unique to you. It's the same thing. And I think that is why people want to work with you guys. 'Cause you're the
I mean,
best.
you know, like what you said is so true. And my dad is a retired physician. So I always say, like, I'm not curing cancer. I'm not a doctor. But you could liken it to, like, you know, now we have WebMD. Why do you need to go to a doctor? Because, like, you can't just read everything. And not everything is so black and white. Like, you know, having somebody that actually knows the background and the information behind, and this is a science, it's a form of science, right?
Yeah.
Is important.
It's like you can do your taxes in TurboTax, or you can hire an accountant.
Right, a good accountant, right.
But that's transactional versus relational, I think. You know, you could do it that way. You could go to WebMD, but you know, I want a little more layers and texture to things. And I think that's why people work with you, because they trust you.
By the way, one thing just to point out from an industry perspective, in the last 25 years, almost every major agency relationship has been essentially disintermediated. Like, who uses travel agents anymore to book flights? You know, you look at most of these service-based businesses that have gone away. And everyone keeps saying, we're going away. We're going to get rid of real estate agents. We're going to have an app. We're going to have an algorithm. We're going to have this website. By the way, that was the foundation of Compass, by the way, the initial plan, which obviously didn't work, and they became us instead. We haven't gone away. You know, commissions might have moved a little bit in certain sub-markets, things might have shifted on the margins, but the foundational element of our business, the people and that interaction, 25 years ago, today, totally the same.
No, I mean, I had him here not too long ago, and he said, you know, a lot of his friends, all of his friends and people that he knows that are very powerful, they all want to talk to an expert. You know, they want to get special advice, and people are using agents now more than ever. Because it's like you said, it's the biggest decision of somebody's life. They want to talk to somebody who knows. You're not just going to pull the trigger. So,
well, what I've seen a lot happen, I don't know if this has happened to you, I see people like sort of look on their own for a while and then lose out on something or feel confused, and then they decide that they do want to hire a broker. And often they don't. You know, I get a lot of referrals, but I don't know if this happens to you. I get a lot of people who do research on their own to find a good broker. They like Google, you know, they'll do a search for what they're looking, they'll see who comes up the most, or they'll call me and they'll tell me they want to interview me. Or I'll meet them at an open house and they'll call me later and say, you know, we didn't like that property, but we liked sort of the way you spoke to us. So I mean, I do think, you know, and I do think, like, you compared it to like being a travel agent. I think the difference is what Bess said, is it's a longer relationship, right? Like, you don't look at 3 things and buy it. It can be a real process. And
years. I mean, I've had agents work with somebody for 2 or 3 years and they do the deal, but they stick with them, they work with them, they're patient. And you know, you get paid for results only. That's it. You could work for a long time and wait before you actually get some sort of financial benefit. And people don't understand that. And those reality shows are so misleading. They're so, you know, inaccurate because it doesn't work that way. You don't just show up, look cute, have a limo, and collect a check and do a kick. It takes so much time and effort and thought and ups and downs, and it's all this stuff, and you put so much time into it. And if they ever taped that, it would be boring. People would never want to watch that. It's like the Housewives, I say. You know, it's like, that's not what it's like to be a mom with kids. There's no stylist and makeup artist to get you ready. You know, could you imagine? And the kids are quiet, you know, like that doesn't work that way. And the dog's not barking. I mean, life is messy and busy and crazy, and what you do is such a hustle, and real estate professionals get a bad rap. And I think that's unfair. Sometimes it's deserved, but I think you guys represent the highest level of what we do. And we're so proud and fortunate to be working with you.
You know, one thing I will say that I think is interesting, and, you know, again, I don't know how long you've been doing it. Like, has Street Easy always been a thing since you've been in the business?
It was kind of becoming a thing when I started, yeah.
So, you know, back in the old days, there used to be a lot more buyers who used multiple brokers because a lot of stuff was kept in-house.
Yeah.
So if you didn't have a broker at like every single company, you were afraid that you were losing out on things. There was no Street Easy, so there was no version of the MLS. What I've actually found is that buyers who want a broker, now maybe it's also because I've been doing this so long that I don't have people who are not loyal to me, but I think there's more loyalty because buyers understand that we all get the same thing, you know? So that's actually been a good thing about it.
I like hearing that. That's a big plus.
I mean, and by the way, I can say, like, on our listings, I don't know about how it is for you, we don't really see very many direct deals anymore. Almost everybody's represented now. Almost every single
I'll
deal.
tell you something. I just had 3 things go to over ask, and one of them, everybody came with a broker, and they're all around the same price. And the other thing, 6 out of the 8 buyers came without a broker. And it was really fascinating. And they were all sort of the same age group, and they were buying for the first time. They all lived in rentals, but I guarantee you that, and we ended up in this bidding war. We went from somebody who had a broker who ended up not being so great to picking one of the directs, much against sort of like, I didn't even want to do it. But I think that the other 3 people that were direct, or 4 people who were direct and didn't get the apartment, I bet you they hire a broker afterwards.
They will.
I think it was their first foray into it. And they all sort of said to me, but I don't understand. I didn't come with a broker. How come I didn't get it? And I was like, because your bid wasn't the best bid, you know? Like,
you need expertise. You need somebody to guide you and tell you, bid this, do non-contingent, have your lawyer on your offer, like show that you're like give all the details. Like when you show that you're ready, then people want to work with you. And so that's what an agent gives to.
What I also think happens is that, I just had lunch a couple of hours ago with 2 broker friends of mine, and we were talking about direct deals. And I think that, brokers who are less busy tend to really seek out direct deals more, right, for their listings. Because, if you're doing less work, that difference in commission feels like, it's super important. What I think most really good brokers have found when you're listing is that I don't really like a direct deal.
Correct.
I really don't. I so prefer having a great broker on the other side. And I've sort of said that to buyers sometimes. Like, if you want a broker, you should definitely get one.
It keeps it cleaner. The lines, it's like if you're going through a divorce, you should have 2 people representing. You don't want one person dealing with anything because there could be adversarial points of contention, and you want to have somebody who's like clearly, in doing that. And I think it's a better way to do business if you can. Right?
That's a way to do more volume also.
Yeah,
like
of course.
you can't manage both sides of the transaction and do the same amount of business. Exactly right. I always say in our business, like, price is important, obviously. Like, prices go up 10%. Theoretically, yes, we make more money. Maybe not, in parallel 10%, but we make more money. But if you do 10 deals versus 5 deals, that's where we make our money as brokers.
Right.
So building your business from a volume perspective is how you grow your income and your wealth through real estate. And you can't do it if you're managing the emotions of someone who thinks they're so smart that they can't have a representative in the biggest financial transaction of their life. Not going to happen.
Such a good point. That is such a good point. We got to broadcast that out. All right, let's switch gears for a second. Talk to me, Lisa, a little bit. Who are some of your mentors? Who do you look up to? Who's inspired you in your life? And it doesn't have to be something real estate, but what gets you going? Like, everybody has their sort of true north. There's something. What is it for you?
Well, I have to say, just for work ethic and how to handle the people around you, both my parents, specifically my father. My father was so hardworking and, woke up every morning with a bounce in his step to go to work. He really loved his career. He was an internist, and he took care of patients with all kinds of medical needs, and he loved it. So that was always an inspiration to me, to enjoy your job and enjoy the people around you, enjoy working with people, the people below you, the people above you, all of that. Then I was also really motivated and inspired by Barbara Corcoran. I worked for her for a bunch of years, and she always had such meaningful and wise words about the business. I'll never forget, I think it was the 2nd or 3rd year I worked there, and we had our annual meeting in January, and we all sat down in some big auditorium. It might have been at the Ziegfeld, actually. And she said, all of you who are sitting there right now, it's January, and you're nervous about what's coming this year and whether you're going to make any money and are you going to do as well as last year or whatever. And I was like, oh no, that's me. And she said, you are going to be the best brokers. You guys are going to be the top brokers. And I thought, whew, this is normal. And I always think about it. I think about it every January. And she was just always such an inspiration because she was so honest about how hard a business it can be. And that, it's like you said, you don't make any money unless you make a sale. And people who don't have jobs like that don't really understand it. And, Barbara was a great inspiration. She was completely self-made, And
she was honest, and she was also relatable, and she was strong but warm.
Yeah.
And she had high emotional intelligence and connected with people, and
Yeah.
she wasn't afraid to try stuff, and she was also funny, and she's a great lady. I see her in the neighborhood. I also got to work with her, and I love her a lot.
And then I'll tell you, one of my current inspirations is my manager, Kevin Kveski.
Oh, we love Kev.
Because he's always positive, even when things are negative. He allows you to say that's negative, but he has sort of a positive way about it. He always is kind of like, just move on to the next thing. You know, you've done this, it's been great, so this one didn't work out. He
says whatever, like, it's whatever.
Right, and we really need that in this business.
We definitely do.
And I've been doing this almost 25 years, and I don't think I ever had a manager who made me feel as good and made me feel as good about coming to the office. And it's really reflective in our office. I just think we have such a great
he's
office.
like the daddy of the company. People love him.
Yeah, I'm sure I have other mentors, but I can't
there's
think of them now.
tons. I mean, we have so many. Ari?
It's funny the comment that you made about Barbara Corcoran. There's a guy at Wells who I did a bunch of business with like early on in my career, and at the beginning of his career in his 20s or something, he had like his first big year as a mortgage banker, and he went to like the summit in Florida, whatever they do, and he's surrounded by like all the top mortgage bankers in Wells Fargo, and this guy just made whatever he made, but it was a lot of money to him that year. Yeah. And all these guys are like hemming and hawing, I don't know about the business, what's going to happen next year, and this and that, whatever. And he realized in that moment that the reason, to a certain extent, that they were successful is because they never lose that fear. They never lose that kind of like, that inner kind of
You have ripples in your belly. You're hungry. It's like a boxer.
Yeah,
like
the hunger. That's a good word.
You got to have that hunger.
It's always there, So these were guys who were making like 2, 3, 4, 5, 10x, whatever it was he made that year, but they were not worried with like a capital W, but they were worried about where their business was going to come from and how they were going to sustain it. And that worry, to a certain extent, if you channel it in the right way, becomes the fuel for your business. It's kind of like, I always explain to, like, if you talk to like a financial advisor or someone like that who has the recurring revenue model, we don't have that. We have a relational business, but with a transactional revenue model. So you're constantly having to reinvent the wheel every day, every week, every month, And some people just kind of have that inner drive and some don't. Like, I don't think you can teach it.
You can't, yeah. I don't think you can. But, what happens, you see with a lot of people is that they're very successful. They make a lot of money, and then the hunger or the ripples in your belly go away, and you don't have that same hunger, and then you're kind of trying to figure stuff out, So, Ari, talk to me about what is a whole, healthy life for you? What does that mean? Like,
oh my God, wow, that's a big one.
It's a big one, but it's also, and Lisa has her version of this, I'm sure, as well, but like, you do a lot of different things. You have a lifestyle. Talk to me about what that is for you and maybe a little bit of why.
Oh, boy. So I guess you have different areas of your life. You have family, you have friends, you have business, you have financial life, you have physical well-being, mental well-being, and I think what we're all striving to do is find the right balance between those different areas. In our business, myself included, like Lisa, I will admit I work way too much, so we're always trying to find what that right balance is. One thing I will say on that point, and I think it's true for you as well, or I get the sense that it is it's not really money driven. Like, it's not like, how do I make another dollar? Like, that's not what's driving it. I think our business is fun. I think it's exciting. I like the challenge. I like the challenge of the deal, of the running of the team, of the business, of the how do we do this differently in a better way? How do we respond to different markets? How do we expand into this territory, whatever it is? Like, that's the part that's kind of like fun and exciting. Like, yes, the commission checks are nice, but they're kind of a byproduct of doing the right thing.
Agreed.
It's like it's not the means, it's the end, The rest of the stuff is like, I'm a crazy health fanatic, that.
He's vegan and
plant-based, running, fitness lunatic, but even though those things take a lot of hours and I train like crazy and everything, they give me more energy, which allows me to have more hours in the day. So it's not a zero-sum game, meaning like 2 hours working out is not 2 hours lost because I have more energy to do other things.
And also mentally, what it does for you, clears your head, helps you feel better. You can probably do so many more things because you've done that. You put yourself in better shape.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. And I think, if you look at not myself, but look at other brokers in the business who are successful, one of the reasons I think they're successful is because they have these other genuine areas of interest in their lives, and it allows them to connect with other people on a human level. Like Warner, my business partner, who's a better people person than I am, can walk into a room and like look at a book, and he read the book, and he knows the author, and he can talk to people about it, and they make a connection, you know? And that is, at the end of the day, we're not a real estate business, we're in a people business, right? Like the apartment isn't hiring you, the person is hiring you. So it's like, how do you tie all those things in? And then I always remind people, like, we only get to go around once, as far as I'm aware, like, unless you guys have something new that you can tell me. Like, we're only going around once, so like, make the most of every day, and figure out like how you move through those different levers in different areas of your life, and you'll have different needs at different points. Like, my children are very young now, so I'm in one place. When they're teenagers and they're like, I don't want to hang out with dad, he's a loser, then I'll probably have a different place, you know, and that's all the kind of stuff.
I don't think they're going to say that.
I don't know.
I'm betting that they won't.
Okay, I hope you're right. Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a point they're like, I don't want to hang out with
They're
dad.
going to go through a little bit, but look, Lisa, you have your kids.
I have kids all ages, so I'm like, just for people watching, I don't want everyone to think you have to exercise 2 hours and be a vegan, because I am none of those things.
No, but Ari's like runs and does stuff that most people don't. I mean,
No,
it's
I realize
outrageous.
that.
Yeah,
Right. So I have kids that are different ages. I have 27 who works with me, 24, and then 16. So I've been sort of having kids I started at 29 and I finished at 41. 2 husbands. So, I would say that, you know, a healthy life for me is everything in moderation, like everything. So I eat everything in moderation, and I drink a little bit, all in moderation. And healthy life for me is, you know, I definitely exercise, not as much as you do. I probably did more when I was younger, but I just find that sometimes I'm a little bit too tired out, and I like to sleep a little more than I used to. I'll admit that. I think that, you know, being grateful every day. And I like to read a lot, and I find that reading is, you know, very fulfilling to me and very healing to me. And reading about new things and learning about new things, I would say that I'm probably someplace in between you and Warner. Mm-hmm. I'm like a people person. I'm also sort of a numbers person. I'm probably not as much of a people person as Warner, but maybe a little bit more than you think yourself. I mean, I think you're probably more of a people person than you think you are. But, you know, I like to connect to people, and that's one of the things that I really like about the job. And it's actually one of the things that I find the most fulfilling is the people part of it. And that feels really healthy to me. And that, I mean, it makes me feel good to be with people, to be running around. One of the things I love about our job is that I feel like it's kind of a healthy job that we're not sitting at a desk. We're not looking at a computer all day. I wish we didn't look at our phones as much. But I love the fact that we're outside. You know, yesterday it was gross and it was pouring, but it was good. Because if we didn't have our job, we would have never, my husband said he never left his office all day long. Like, I had to get out there and get wet. It was great. And so to me, that has actually, it's kind of the European method of staying healthy, is just sort of like walking, being outside, being...
No 2 days are alike. You know,
Exactly.
everything is different.
Exactly.
You know, there's such a variety. And people, as you said, you know, you meet people from all sorts of backgrounds, and you learn things, and they learn from you, and it's also a little bit of internal growth.
Right. And actually what you will see as your kids get older is that you're not able to keep certain habits because your kids change and you have to morph with them. And I actually think that that's a fun thing that happens, is that you continue to grow and sort of learn to morph your life to respond to your children. You know, and they don't talk to you, they don't come running home to you when you get home from work, but they still want you in different ways.
Okay, so as we close out, I would love to know where your thoughts are regarding the real estate market. We know 2021 was a historic year, best year ever, bonkers. What do you think is going to be for 2022? What are your predictions? Obviously, the crystal ball, none of us actually know, but we know there's inflation. Rates have gone up. We're in a war. You know, Russia's, you know, invaded Ukraine. Gas prices are up. There's nervous energy, volatility in the stock market, short supply. I'm just giving you a few little things that I'm noticing.
All the hopeful stuff.
I mean, all that stuff. Supply is everything's expensive. Try ordering a couch today, and lumber is up. I mean, these are all the things that are going on. How do you see the rest of the year in New York City specifically? Either one of whoever wants to.
No, I'm going to give this one to you.
My favorite line is economists have predicted 9 out of the last 5 recessions. No one has a clue. We as human beings are wired in this weird way where we are really bad at predicting the future and very confident at doing so at the same hand, which is like my favorite thing. I have literally no idea. I'm not going to tell you I have an idea. Everything you just mentioned is so unbelievably intertwined and complex. My biggest advice to brokers is ignore the noise, put your head down and work. And good markets, bad markets, up, down, left, sideways, high prices, low prices, whatever. There's so much business in this city. Yeah. Like, I think, I come from like an abundance wealth mindset. So like similarly, I'm not sitting here thinking like, oh, Lisa's going to steal business from me. Like, there's so much business. She can make a lot of money. We can do a lot. I think that the brokers that are focused on the noise get caught up in that shit, pardon my French, as opposed to like really just focusing on their business. And so my advice is like, almost don't even read the news. It's so unbelievably negative. No one's, like the New York Times is not putting out, here are all the great things that happened yesterday. It's like, here are all the awful things that are newsworthy. One of my friends from business school who worked in PR always said that if they print it, it is by definition unusual and an aberration. That's why it becomes news. Yeah. So don't even focus on it. Put your head down, work, treat people the right way, make your calls, send your emails, send your newsletters. Plenty of business, forget about what's happening because you can't change it. Or if you want to like really like get involved in like efforts to save people in Ukraine and do things, awesome, wonderful, but like actually proactively do it. That's my 2 cents. That's my soapbox.
I think that's great advice. Miss Lisa.
I have sort of similar perspective that I've always been a big reader. I read all the news. I don't stop reading it because I feel like it's my responsibility to know what's going on with other human beings. Yeah. Not because of how I think it's going to affect my business, but just more like I need to know what's going on in the world because it's important to me. And I'm the same way in the sense of, people will call me and say, oh, did you see what happened to the market? What do you think is going to happen with my apartment today? And usually my response is, I don't follow the stock market. I really don't. Obviously I have money invested, but unless I need to cash it out, it doesn't really matter to me. Long term, is it better if the market's higher or lower? Of course I know that, but on a day-to-day basis, it doesn't really affect what we do. I think what affects what we do most is how people feel about living in New York. Yeah, that's true. And, I don't know if you worked through 9/11, but after 9/11, now you're probably like a little boy, but I don't mean that in a mean way, but
okay. I'm still a little boy.
My husband was a little boy in 9/11, so it's okay. I did.
Second time's the charm, right?
Yes, it is. After 9/11, the first 2 months, everybody was like fleeing New York. People left signed contracts. They left deposits on the table. And who knew that March was the busiest spring we had had in years. And when COVID hit, I had the same feeling. I thought to myself, when this nightmare is over, people are going to come back in droves. And most people were like, nope, that's never happening. And you know what? I was right. Not everybody came back, but a lot of new people came too because they found New York a little bit more affordable. So I kind of feel like as long as people feel good about living in New York, we're going to be busy here. Is it going to go up and down? 100%, like Ari said. Yep. If you're talking about being a broker, you can always make money if you work hard and you work smart and you stay focused and you stay positive. All of these brokers who get so negative, oh, no one wants to live here, no one wants to pay taxes. I always want to shake them and say, are you trying to sell real estate in New York? Like, really, tell me what you're trying to do. I think that we are, except for the short period of, quarantine, we live in a world that people do enjoy urban living. Yep. People really do. And if you love New York, it's in your heart, it's in your soul. There will always be people who move because it's cheaper to pay taxes someplace else. But most people live where they want to live. And one of the things that I never really understand about this whole taxes thing is, and I just have to say that, is like, I always thought that the beauty of having more money than you knew what to do with was that you got to pick wherever you wanted to live. Right. So I don't really understand this concept of people who move for taxes. And I do think that most New Yorkers feel like this is where I choose to live. If I'm lucky enough, I get to have a house someplace else too. Right. But it's a super exciting city. And so I feel very invested in keeping this city a fabulous city, and that means keeping our schools great and keeping the streets clean and safe. And if we do that, we will always have a great city that people want to live in.
Well, we're doing that. I mean, I think the fact that we have a new mayor who's focused on safety and all the things that you're talking about, and as well as Governor Hochul and all of the things, like we're doing that. And I think that that's very important. And New York City is like no other place in the world. It's got a magic, a zest, an emotional. It's just you can feel it in the streets, and so people do want to be here.
And I also think, importantly, and this is something that I've learned over the years, is the market will continue to be good as it is now if sellers don't get too greedy. Because when our market has, the brakes put on it, is when sellers start raising their prices because they feel too happy. And I always get nervous when we're in a better market that we're in now, that the press starts talking about bidding wars and how great everything is, because then sellers read that and then they raise their prices, and that's when things slow down. It's a super, super efficient market. It has been for a very long time. During quarantine it wasn't, and in the middle of the financial crisis it wasn't. But in a normal market, we have a very efficient market. And if things are priced appropriately, we do a lot of transactions.
You also have cycle of life buyers and sellers, estates,
Exactly.
more
People
babies.
die, people are born.
Divorces, all that stuff has to happen, so that continue. That's right. So transactions continue, as you said, Ari and Lisa, and so it sounds like you guys are pretty optimistic about the future, about at least the rest of.
Yeah. Do you want to join my team?
I mean, if you have an opening for me, I don't know. I'm great with Excel.
And I'm not.
I mean, I think it's also like, just to add to Lisa's point, because I'm also like eternally an optimist, look around New York City. We just had, to your point, like a bonkers busiest year of all time. What's our office occupancy rate? Like 20%? To me, what that shows is people actually want to live in this city, not just because they're commuting to an office, because they actually want to live here. We're not even going into offices, and yet we have the biggest banner real estate year in history. So if that doesn't tell you about like the zest for like New York City life, I don't think anything else possibly could. So yes, there's this idea across the country, like, oh, these crazy New Yorkers, well, they only live there because their office is there or whatever. That's actually not the case. And by the way, a lot of the office districts still really suffering.
They're still that's a great point. That distinction is such a good point. You guys, thank you for sitting with me, because I know you probably now have 2,000 emails, as do I, but that we have the weekend to work on that.
It was great, and I learned a lot from you today, so thank you.
I learned a lot from both of you, and I think you guys really gave great value to the audience. So thank you for coming here today, sitting
My
with
pleasure.
me. Loved having you on the lead.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.